Hi, everyone. My name is Shimri. I'm from Aringo MBA Admission Consulting. I'm here to discuss today how to get into top MBA programs, overcoming a low GMAT score. We will discuss other topics as well. Of course, the coronavirus, that's probably the most urgent topic that has a huge impact, so we'll discuss that. I'm going to split my presentation into three different areas. So, of course, the coronavirus. Then I'll discuss some high-level, how to get into top MBA programs, salaries, why do a top MBA program, what are schools looking for, etc. If you're thinking about applying in 3-4 years and just looking for some high-level information, so there's no reason to continue, because then we're actually going to dig in to some more deep analysis on actually how to get into top MBA programs. Okay, I'm sharing my screen. I hope you can see it. And this is when we start. And I hope you're going to see my screen from now. So, again, topic is how to get into top MBA programs, basically. But we're going to discuss the coronavirus as well. A bit about me. I'm a software engineer. I was a programmer. Then I went to London Business School. I did a career transformation and went to consulting. After that, I rejoined the IT and high-tech companies, and I was more senior and business development roles, up to VP role. And I joined Aringo 6 years ago. Before I joined Aringo, when I graduated from London Business School, I was asked to be on the admissions committee, and I was interviewing candidates for the school for about 8 years. And like I said, I've been at Aringo for 6 years. This is my only slide about Aringo. So what do? We help candidates get into top MBA programs. We've been going on for 16 years. So you can do the maths. We don't work with too many candidates each year. We're very good. That was my marketing slide. So I was going to talk about how do you get into top MBA programs and why, when, who, and some other WH questions. But then we've all been impacted by the coronavirus. So, by the way, I forgot to say, if you just write down comments, questions along the way, I won't be able to see them as I go through the presentation, but I'm going to leave enough time at the end of this presentation to go through all your comments, and I will answer them live. So if you just write down stuff as you go along, I will be able to answer them live. Cool. So let's continue. The coronavirus, huge impact. So let's discuss that first. I actually wrote a slide about the coronavirus and put it at the end of the presentation. Then I moved it to the middle of the presentation. And I was actually going through my slides a few minutes ago, and I thought, this is ridiculous. There's a huge elephant in the room. Let's just talk about the elephant. Okay. So I'm hoping most of you are at home like me and managing to work from home. Here are the facts regarding MBA admissions. If we look forward, the prerequisites are not going to change. You can still take the GRE. You can take it from home as of a few days ago. There's some nice videos online now of how to take it from home. And basically, I think it will actually be an advantage, and it's a nicer space and at your own time. The GMAT will be open for home takers also in a few days. And even if your country isn't in the selected few countries that they've announced so far, if the GMAT test centers are closed, you're going to be able to take it from home in the next few months. So, if you thought you're going to get into Harvard in 2 years without the GMAT, that's not going to happen. Same prerequisites stay. If we look at the 2020 programs, the programs that are starting in the upcoming months, there's a very few number of programs that were supposed to start in June. Those programs have already announced to the admitted students that it's not going to happen in June. They'll either start online, or the programs are being postponed to July. Regarding programs that are starting in September, well, again, I think as you've seen, the world is changing on a day-by-day basis. No one's announced anything, no delays or no online. I don't think the programs themselves know what's happening. I think we have to look at the bigger picture. MBAs is a small segment in higher education and in education. And it might be country by country or even state by state basis in the US. But right now, according to April, the programs are going to start on time in September. One little change that we've seen with the upcoming programs in September is nearly all the schools have extended the round 3, the last round deadlines. And if in the past people could apply to these programs by April, that was the last round, we're seeing that most of the schools have extended the deadlines even till June. So schools know you're having quite a weird month, or maybe you couldn't take the GMAT or other thing, maybe you've been fired from your work or something like that, and have extended most of the deadlines to June. So that's very rare. And yes, you can still apply for 2020. By the way, this was my first slide with the facts. I will go into my analysis of these facts in the next slide. Regarding 2021 programs, like we said, business as usual. September, most programs will open their applications in May or June, and you can apply in September 2020 for 2021 programs. And beyond that, hopefully there'll be a vaccination for coronavirus and we'll never hear of that again. Okay, let's think about what the facts, what's the impact of them. So if I look at 2020 now, programs are supposed to start in less than 5 months. I've spoken to all our admitted candidates, and we've seen that most of the international admitted candidates, people who have already been accepted to top MBA programs, are considering to defer their studies. So they've already been accepted to Harvard or to other programs, and are thinking, should they go next year to an MBA? Some of them are actually having technical difficulties. Okay, for example, if the US embassy is closed, how do you get out a visa on time? That's quite a big difficulty. Another issue is maybe you just can't travel right now. Okay, I'm restricted. I can't leave my house right now, so that's a problem. And the third issue can be funding. I thought I would work. I thought I would have lots of money. I thought my boss would sponsor my MBA. All that's not happening now. I'm just going to need another year till I get my stuff together and I decide what's happening. So candidates are considering the deferral, which is one issue. It's a big issue for schools, because most schools don't actually have a deferral policy. And I have a candidate who got accepted to Columbia this year. He actually got accepted in October, and in November he got a huge raise in salary and a huge promotion, but they asked him to stay an extra year. He contacted Columbia, and Columbia said, sorry, there's no deferral policy. Okay, so all this was pre-coronavirus. What's going to happen now? Well, schools are actually considering this as we speak. Stanford was the first school and the only school, top school that I know of to date, that announced that any international candidates that apply in round 3 and don't manage to get a visa on time will be deferred to next year. If other schools follow that, we will see quite big numbers of deferral candidates. Like I said, schools are extending their deadlines now. And let's think what that means. They were counting on X amount of people coming, and now it's going to be X minus 50 or minus 100 or minus 200. That means there's places, and that's one of the reasons why they extended their deadlines. Of course, they mentioned the GMAT and other reasons, but that's one reason. They're going to have a lot of empty seats. What's the conclusion for September 2020? There's a real opportunity for application. So if you were considering 2020 versus 2021, if you already have a GMAT, or if you have enough work experience and can take the GMAT in the next few weeks, if there's been some kind of change and this is the right time for you to go for it, go for it. Because soon we'll look at next year, it's not going to get easier. So if we look at 2021, what we think is this. First of all, we mentioned that this year there might be a lot of deferrals. These deferrals are going to study their MBAs next year. So if a third are considering it, okay, even if a 10th decide to defer their their studies to next year, that means that in 2021, there's going to be only 90% of the seats, which means less seats, harder to get in. Not just harder to get in, but historically, when there's a recession, there's more enrollment. Okay, people are losing their jobs. People are thinking what their next steps are. People are thinking maybe they need to transition from their industry. Okay, maybe they've been working in hospitality and can see a decrease in the number of hotel stays and decide they actually want to go and work in consulting. How do they do this? Well, maybe with an MBA. So we think the applicants are going to be more diverse. It's going to be a tough year next year. This is a couple more analyses. This is like for more extended analysis. And this is my personal belief. It's not based on information, it's just my belief. I think there might be a one-year program uplift. It might become more popular. Candidates won't want to leave their jobs for 2 years. Another thing is, again, this is not based on any info, it's just based on my belief. I think people will travel less. And if you want to travel less, maybe you'll take your MBA a bit closer to home. And my last conclusion, and this is actually based on historical data, is that MBA graduates will actually become more hireable. Companies won't want to make mistakes. They'll want to hire the best resources they can. They won't compromise. And if you've gone to a top MBA program, they will want to hire you. So those were my 3 coronavirus slides that, like I said, moved from the end of the presentation to the beginning. Again, I'll answer questions at the end. I'm just going to rush through the presentation and then try and answer questions. Well, I won't rush, but I'll go through everything. Okay, now we're back to the agenda. Okay, so who, where, what, why, how. Another WH questions regarding how to get into a top MBA program, even if you have a low GMAT. So first, let's think what the motivation to do a top MBA program is. And the main motivation I always see with candidates is career switching. Like myself, I was a computer engineer. I used to program. I think I was doing it quite well. I was getting a good salary, but I just wanted to move into more business-related positions. And that's a career switch. We see a lot of lawyers that want to work in business-related issues. They want to lead the deals. We see accountants that want to move into venture capital or banking. We see a lot of programmers who want to stay in IT companies but want to move into more product management roles. So that's a career switcher. Another reason to do an MBA is to be an accelerator. You're very happy where you are, but you want to do something better. You want to be better. And then to do that, I think the way to do that is to do an MBA, go back to your position, your career that you were in, not your position, the career you were in, your industry, but at a higher level position. Another reason to do an MBA is to be a future entrepreneur. We see a lot of people who know they want to be entrepreneurs, they know they want to found their company, they have even a basic idea of what they want to do, but they don't exactly have a product, they don't have a business plan, they don't know what they want to do, they don't know how to do it. And the MBA give a lot of tools to do this. I put academia here, and then I painted it into red. If your dream is to be a professor in a higher education institution, I'm not sure an MBA is the right way forward. This is a degree that usually doesn't have a thesis. It doesn't lead to a PhD program in a natural way. I have seen MBAs that have done PhDs, but there's easier ways to go and do a PhD in an institution and then come back and to your home country or to your hometown and teach in a university. So I'm not saying an MBA isn't the right way for an academia, but it's definitely not the easiest way I've heard of. So I would maybe reconsider that if that's your plan. So why do a top MBA apart from the main reasons? Yeah, that's interesting what happened. Sorry about that. Well, first of all, there's great salaries. Let's just talk about the money. I always like to start from that. And I'll show you the salaries after that, etc. But the salaries from top MBA programs are really high. And like we said, after a recession, there's a lot of interest in MBA graduates from companies. Salaries won't go down. This is a fantastic career switching opportunity. And if you're a very successful lawyer, that's great. But it's still very hard to go and do a shift to a venture capital firm. But the MBA does give you that opportunity. Another thing is a lot of people just go, work in study and work in a different country that they're living in, or in a different state if you're in the US. And this is a real opening door to go and study, live, and then work in that state or country. The last and not least, it's a really great opportunity to have fun, to increase your network, very diverse network, and to be intellectually stimulated. And it's a bit like a kid in a toy shop or candy shop. There's so much to learn. There's so much that we don't know, and an MBA program definitely helps to do all that. So it's an amazing achievement, an amazing experience. I'm not going to go into all the top MBA programs. I'm just going to kind of try and show you them. I think most of you know most of the top universities in the US, and I'll discuss why I think you know them. And in Europe, some candidates don't know all the programs I just mentioned here. 9 out of the top programs, and there's also some special programs. I'll discuss this a bit more. Some special programs, and I didn't mention all of them. But basically, by the way, I didn't mention any Canadian programs here because, to be honest, they're not ranked in the top 10, although no one said that's not the best school for you, or any Asian programs, apart from INSEAD. Again, none of them are ranked in top 10 rankings. So I just mentioned here the main European and US programs. And the main difference between the programs is, and this is where I have a trademark, the mum factor. Okay, so my mother, she knows most of those US programs. Okay, and not necessarily just Harvard or Stanford. She knows Duke, she's heard of Cornell, she's heard of UCLA. And the reason is these programs, these schools are big in everything. Okay, so I know nothing about journalism, but I'm sure the UCLA has a very good journalism program. I'm sure they have a very good dentist program. I'm sure they have a very good biology program, because the big US universities are just good at everything. Okay, so Harvard Business School, but also Harvard Kennedy School for a public sector, and also Harvard Medical School, right? And Columbia the same. So the big US programs are famous at everything. That's why my mom knows them. So they have a very famous brand, even to people, trust me, my mom knows nothing about MBAs, even to people who are very out of this kind of industry. Most of the MBAs in the US are 2 years. Okay, and like I mentioned here, 60 to 70% are Americans in these programs. I think we'll actually see an uplift in 2020 due to the coronavirus impact I discussed before on international candidates. If I look at the European schools, first, and I include INSEAD as well, although it has a campus in Singapore, as well as in France, some of them are very small. Okay, so I'm a London Business School graduate. I think there's around 500 MBA students every year. That's it. Okay, so the school's much smaller than NYU that has 20,000 students every year. Second thing is there's a lot of international candidates at the school. So there's about 90% foreigners. It's actually harder to get into INSEAD if you're French. It's harder to get into London Business School if you're British. They're looking for diversity. They're looking for international candidates. And most of the schools are between, or all of them are between 1 to 1.5 years, which is a bit shorter than the US programs. I've already put here a little conclusion. The return on investment will be quicker because you're out of the job market for short term. How do you decide between the schools? Well, the ultimate decision is location. I have a whole slide about that. But first of all, when you think about schools, there's a lot of myths. And I try to kind of tell you, my mom knows this school and doesn't know another school. That's one myth. For example, if I look at Europe, my mom would probably hear about Oxford, but wouldn't hear about INSEAD, although INSEAD was ranked the last 4 out of 5 years, #1 in the Financial Times global MBA ranking. So there's a lot of myths around here. So question number 1, okay, where did the highest alumni get paid, okay, on average? So, I asked this question a lot, and this is last year statistics that we found. And the first answer I usually get is Harvard. So then I say, no, guys, you're wrong. And then I sometimes get Stanford, maybe INSEAD, maybe Columbia. Well, actually, it was MIT. And what I'm trying to say here in these myths is there isn't a huge difference between MIT or Harvard in your post-MBA career. The same recruiters are going to come to these schools and offer you very, very similar salaries. Okay, ready for myth number 2? First and second highest ranked MBA programs, okay, in Europe. Sorry, missing that key sentence, in Europe. Okay, so I think actually most candidates will rank INSEAD and London Business School in this question. But if we take INSEAD out, if we say it's a global program, something like that, and we leave London Business School, what's the next highest ranked program in Europe? Think about it. So I usually get Cambridge. Is it Oxford? Is it IESE? Well, truth is actually it depends on the rankings. There's so many rankings. But in Financial Times in the last few years, it's been HEC in Paris. Okay, what does this show? Nothing at all. It just shows that there's lots of top MBA programs. Okay, so forget the myths for a bit. Okay, last myth or question. I don't know. Maybe I should be a trivia game person. Where were the MBA interns paid the most last year? Okay, and again, there's a misleading here. I should be a magician trying to persuade you because this is a slide that has a Harvard logo on, so maybe it's Harvard. I'll tell you it's not Harvard. I'll actually tell you that It's way above Harvard. I think the Harvard average was around $7,000 a month for an intern last year. And the school I'm talking about, had over $9,000 for an internship. That's a huge difference. It's probably not MIT. So some people then say, oh, it must be Stanford, Silicon Valley, etc. Well, actually, it was NYU, not even an M7 school, not even a top 7 school. And probably when I think about it, it makes sense because most of the interns for NYU interned in New York, where the salaries are a tiny bit higher than in Boston or in Chicago or in San Francisco. But it just goes to show that they were interning in very similar companies, making maybe a bit more because New York is a bit more expensive. But basically, they were getting to the same result and same employers post-MBA. So try and forget the myths a bit when you choose a business school. And when I look at choosing a business school, I usually look at 2 considerations. Okay, one is obviously it's important to look at your career goals. And if you have a specific company you're targeting, or if you're targeting green energy, and it's known that California is stronger in green tech and in clean tech than New York, yes, there are advantages to the location of the school in terms of your career aspirations. The second thing is just the actual location. Where would you like to live? Are you a small town person or a big city person? Do you like small universities or big universities? Do you prefer living in Europe or Asia or Canada or the States? Another thing, I have a slide about this, is if you're an international candidate, maybe the type of visa is also important for you. Do you have a spouse? Does the spouse need to work? Do you have parents you want to bring with you to an MBA program? That might make you laugh. I actually had a candidate this year who chose a Canadian school versus an American school just on the basis that she could bring her mother to Canada. Okay, so each person with their own considerations, but ultimately, I think location can kind of answer most of those questions. Right. Again, these are the basic slides. Don't worry, we'll dig into some more complicated slides soon. But let's think about the tuition. Okay, the tuition is very, very expensive. Top MBA programs cost $130,000, $140,000, so around $70,000 a year, times 2 in the US. Europe isn't far behind. The programs are very expensive, but they are shorter, so you are paying less and you're starting to earn a salary quicker. So European programs are definitely cheaper. Again, these are just the tuition costs. Obviously, there's living expenses costs on them. All schools have scholarships. All schools have awards. Most of the schools, again, apart from 2 that I can think of right now, have merit-based scholarships. That means if you're very good, if your application is very good, and you have a high GMAT, or you come from some kind of interesting background, you can get into a top MBA program with a high scholarship. How high? We had last year 12 candidates who got full scholarships, including above the tuition. So they actually got extra money for their expenses. So 12 of those, that's not very many, 12 out of, maybe 200 candidates that we worked with last year, but still, that's nice. 56% of our candidates did get some kind of merit-based scholarship. I think Cornell should stand in the Hall of Shame. They did offer $11,000 to one candidate. That was the lowest scholarship we received this year. But then scholarships can be anywhere between that 11,000, but that's quite rare. They're usually around $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, up to $70,000 or $80,000. And then there's another step, which can be higher than that, up to full tuition. So there are lots of merit-based scholarships. Some schools offer a financial need-based scholarship, not many schools. And after you get into the school, you can start applying for various financial need-based scholarships. I don't know many MBA external fellowships, scholarships, etc. You can check out if you can find some. So there's Fulbright and Chevening from British Council and Forte for women, etc. It's very hard to apply for them external to the school. So usually people get admitted to the school and then try and figure out how they can actually pay for it. That's on the scary side. It costs a lot of money. But let's look on the benefits side. So these are the companies that recruited at London Business School, I think 2 years ago. I'm going to leave the slide open for a few seconds. I'm going to drink my tea. You can think, is there a company here that you would like to work at? Okay, here's my tea. I warned you. So I need to practice my magic act. I think I usually ask candidates, like when I show this presentation, is there a company here you would like to work for? And people say, yeah, of course. And then I say, is there a company here you would not want to work for? And then usually someone sitting in the front says, haha, Burger King. So I think I'm going to make the Burger King logo a bit bigger if you haven't noticed it yet. And actually the Burger King position, as well as a lot of other positions from this slide, is one of the best positions because it was a management rotation program. That means every 6 months you actually do a different program at Burger King. You work in a different department. And it's not cutting the tomatoes one time and then cutting the cucumbers, okay? It's actually working in real estate for 6 months, and then working in strategy for 6 months, and then working in marketing for 6 months, and then working in mergers and acquisitions for 6 months. And after 2 years, deciding with your managers where you would like to work. And again, all this in various locations, high paid. This is a dream job. A lot of these jobs actually are dream jobs. If we look at the average post-MBA salaries, the numbers here are basic salaries. They're before sign-up bonuses, before stock options, before various other bonuses. So we can see kind of similar salaries. And again, the fact that Kellogg might have a lower salary than Columbia on average doesn't mean the salary really is lower. It might just mean that a lot of Columbia graduates stay in New York, where salaries might be a bit higher than in Chicago. So if you're working at McKinsey Chicago or McKinsey New York, I think you'll find that you're doing kind of the same job. And actually your expenses in Chicago are a bit lower. So that's why there's a bit of a difference. The differences are very, very small, okay? And they'll also sum up if you look at the expenses of where you actually work. If we look at the 3-year post-MBA salaries, first of all, we'll see an increase in all of them. Second of all, we'll see a little jump at Stanford. That's a bit a strange jump. It's quite high. There's ways to explain it. For example, people that came from a company that was owned by a family perhaps got a very, very, very high salary. People that just had their own company and stayed in the Silicon Valley and went to Stanford and then went back to the company and paid themselves $10 million, well, that changes the average salary by a lot. So that's why there's a high jump. There's one other reason, because I got these two columns from two different data tables, one's from Business Because and one's from Financial Times. And I think that also explains when you're trying to ask alumni how much they're earning, and one financial newspaper uses method 1 and one uses method 2, you might get different results. If we look at Europe, salaries aren't that far behind. Okay, so if we look at London Business School or INSEAD or even Cambridge or IESE, salaries are still very high. Remember that the expenses in Europe are lower. Remember that the degree was shorter. You can save more money in Europe. So very, very similar salaries. And let me also tell you that if something changes in the global macroeconomy, okay, and the exchange rate between the euro, pound, dollar changes, and when I studied at London Business School, it was completely different before the pound went all the way down. So salaries in Europe can be higher. So again, when I studied in London Business School, salaries in London were much higher. I think they were 12% higher than New York. So right now they're lower, but again, just an exchange rate thing, and cost of living is lower as well. And things can change. So that's it. When I look at what top MBA programs are looking for, well, first of all, I think they're looking, I'm kind of starting clockwise and starting from smart and dependable. I think that's something very important. It's very hard to prove to the school that you're smart. But schools will look at your application and they'll see, have you taken any ownership on any projects? It can be volunteering projects, it can be at work. Have you shown progress? Okay, is this kind of someone I would like to discuss his career a bit further. So that's something kind of important. I'd like to call it like the big picture of the candidate. If I'm moving clockwise, of course, your academic ability and your academic record is very important, especially the GMAT. The GMAT can account for about 30% of your entire application. That's a huge number. If your GPA is higher or lower, yeah, that can add bonus points. But again, the GMAT does have a very big impact. Schools will be looking for this. Again, this presentation is how to overcome a lower GMAT. So all you need to keep in mind is there's another 70%, not just the GMAT, but you can show the schools other factors. One important other factor is the vision. Schools will usually ask you, why MBA and what are your career plans and what's your biggest achievement and things like that. Schools want to see that you've done interesting things in the past and will continue to do them in the future, or at least aspire to do them. And if you're a waiter in a restaurant and you've progressed to be a shift manager and you want to tell the MBA programs that you want to go for an MBA because you want to be a consultant at McKinsey, that's quite a rubbish vision. If you wanted to be a consultant at McKinsey, go and be a consultant at McKinsey. Okay, but if you tell the schools, you've been a waiter, a shift manager, and you want to do an MBA because you want to open a chain of restaurants, and you have the capability, but you don't know how to open your own business, that's an interesting vision. And it should be something coherent like that. The connection between the past, the MBA program, and the future is very, very important. When I interviewed for London, now I'm moving to school interest. When I interviewed for London Business School, there was one thing and one thing alone that I hated in applicants. When I realized, and this doesn't happen very often, London Business School is a great program, that London Business School wasn't the first choice of my applicants. And when you realize that, there's just no way you're going to let the applicant get admitted because he might go to Cambridge. Okay, so if you're applying to more than one school, don't forget to show interest in every one of those schools and very high motivation for that specific program. Very, very important. Don't copy and paste your applications between the schools. Schools do look for some kind of leadership experience. That's a problem because not everybody manages 10 people at work, but they still will be looking for this. They'll be looking for leadership, for entrepreneurship experience, perhaps. Maybe you did something in university, maybe in volunteering. Maybe one of your hobbies is to run some kind of club, but they will be looking for something. If you don't have this, try and show that you metrics manage, try and show that there's some kind of project and you virtually manage a team, or maybe you need to work on this angle, but it's very, very important to show the schools that you can take a task force and be the leader of it. One of the last ones is international exposure. And not all our candidates have international exposure. A lot of people haven't left their hometown or haven't left their country. MBA programs understand this. When we say international exposure, again, not everybody went 2-3 years to Germany to work at Volkswagen. Okay, I mean, that's okay. But if you do work in some kind of international company, it's advisable to try and work on projects with international teams, either clients or teams from your company. That would be a huge benefit to your MBA application. And last but not least, it's great that you're academically excellent. It's fantastic that you had a very fast and very interesting professional acceleration and achievements. But still, that's not enough. You don't have to volunteer per se, but schools will want to see, another angle of you, either volunteering or hobbies. So, they want to make sure you're interesting. And that's when we say broad horizon. But don't go and volunteer just for the sake of volunteering. Don't go and run a marathon, for God's sakes, just because Shimri said to run a marathon. Okay? But schools will look for some kind of interest. And, bottom line, when I used to interview people for London Business School, I used to have one thought in my mind. Would I want this person to sit by me in class? That's my only thought. And if he's super sharp, that's good. And if he has a lot of experience, that's excellent. But if he's not an interesting person, how can I, have a real discussion with him over lunchtime? So broad horizons is something very important. This is kind of my last slide, or last slide, before we get into like the deep stuff. So, like I said, if some of you are still thinking of applying in a few years, you could hang off in a bit. If we're looking at applying for 2020, and remember, all the schools extended the deadlines, like we said. Think about it now. Talk to me or talk to you or do whatever you need. But guys, there is an opportunity to apply between now and the next 6 or 7 weeks to top MBA programs with a real chance to get in. So think about that. If you're thinking of 2021 or later than that, nothing's changed from what's happened in the past. apart from the dates here that I should have moved by a year, so I apologize. But round one would be September 2020. Sorry, you're actually fine. No, all good. Round one is September 2020. So in 5 months, you should be applying for round one for school starting in September 21. Round two will be in January, and there will be a last round in March or April. Typically, in normal years, not with coronavirus impact, I strongly suggest applying in round one or two and not waiting for round three. Some schools like NYU have round four. Most European schools have more rounds than three. Again, try and go for the earlier rounds versus the last round. To write MBA applications takes time. Again, this is like what we have to cover in MBA applications. And, there's lots of essays. NCAD love essays. I think they have 7 essays this year, together with two recommenders that need to write your recommendations and your CV. If you want a scholarship at NCAD, you have to write lots of essays for that as well. It takes a long time. If you add that to more than one school that you will be applying to, it takes a long time. Obviously, studying for a GMAT or GRE takes a long time as well. CV and just school research. So all this takes time. Usually our candidates work with us 3 or 4 months. So just don't wait till the last minute. Just someone asked me, what about visas? So I mentioned this kind of before. Canada is, has very good visa solutions for MBA candidates. And again, you can get an F1 visa in Canada and you can stay post MBA for 3 years. So that's pretty amazing. Your partner can work there. Obviously, if you do find an employer that sponsors you afterwards, you can stay longer. In the UK, also the visas are okay. If you get a tier 4 visa, again, this is pre-Brexit, but I can't see anything changing because the UK will want strong international candidates doing top MBA programs. So you'll get a tier 4 visa, your partner can work, and you can stay post MBA, again, until you find an employer that sponsors you, and then you can stay even longer. The US continues to be a bit tighter in terms of visas. Again, once you find a sponsor, once you find an employer post-MBA, and top MBAs have more than 90% acceptance rate to employers within 3 months, so that shouldn't be a big issue. But once you find an employer, you can stay because they'll sponsor your visa. But the F1 visa does allow you to stay up to 12 months post-MBA. There are lots of programs which started in recent years, a STEM program. This is a different visa. It gives you 24 months, a bit complicated. But basically in the US, your spouse cannot work, okay? There is an exception if you get a different type of visa called J1. That does allow your spouse to work. Again, please investigate this further. Okay, and I think kind of my last slide before we begin a bit is what can you do? What can you do now? Well, if you're still a student, obviously work on your GPA. If you go to the US, I hope that's not going to happen soon, but once the coronavirus finishes, go and visit the campuses. Very, very important. And think, how can you improve your profile? Okay, can you add some extra curriculum? Can you choose some kind of promotion that will work in your way? Think about your recommenders. Okay, very, very important. Continue researching the schools. It's great that you're on this kind of chat as well and blog. And obviously, the higher GMAT that you can, the better. I think that was kind of the last slide. Again, just about Aringo. Aringo, helps with everything. Feel free to reach out if you're interested in MBA applications. Happy to help. I did promise, again, this is my email if you want to send me an email. So I did promise also to answer some questions, and I did promise a few real tips. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to give you now 7 tips, okay, very short, and then I'll stay online and answer as many questions as you want. So these are 7 tips of how to get into a top MBA program, overcoming a tough background, GPA, GMAT. Okay, so we're calling it Hacking the Apps. I'm just going to run through my 7 tips quickly. So one is how to write a great CV. And, I used to be a programmer, and I think my programming CV said something like programs in Java, no C++, okay? Something like that. Makes sense, right? I'm a programmer. I want companies to know what I'm doing. Well, MBA programs are not interested in that. They want to see accomplishments, achievements, responsibilities. And I gave here a little example about a lawyer. So a lawyer, in one CV, we saw, I am a lawyer dealing with real estate. Okay, that was kind of the first CV we saw. And when we worked with him, we changed that to a head of the biggest law firm, real estate department in Germany, leading a team of 4. So you see, he's already saying he's working for a great employer in Germany. He's leading a team, so he's already mentioned a managerial experience and is responsible. So he's got ownership and responsibility of projects worth a lot of money. So in this, 3 lines but 1 sentence, he's shown about 4 out of the 7 things I showed you before about, what a top MBA program is looking for. So even in the CV, there's a special CV language. It's all about accomplishments and achievements. Prove that you're special. Show that you're special. That was my CV tip. Next. This is kind of advanced stuff, guys, so hope you're following me. So all schools will ask you, how do you find your, what are your short-term, long-term goals? Why MBA? So what I do with candidates, I literally tell them, close your eyes. Okay, dream about your best career ever. You want to be the CEO of Microsoft, of Google. You want to reinvent the burger to make it out of peas. Fantastic. Okay, now open your eyes, close them again, and think of another goal. Okay, so you don't want to invent the hamburger from peas, because that's been done, but you want to, make farming more environmental friendly. Okay, now open your eyes. Okay, so these are quite good goals. Now let's see, how can you connect them? How can you connect them to what you did? If you were at the beginning of this presentation, you were a waiter that went to be a shift manager and restaurant manager. Does this connect to farming? Not really. Does this connect to burgers? Maybe, a bit better. Does this connect to opening a chain of veggie burgers? Yeah, maybe that's even better. So try and connect your past to your goals. And then you have to actually make a case why you need the MBA for these goals. Okay, because I know nothing about opening a chain of restaurants. I know nothing about entrepreneurship or strategy or marketing. I want to do the MBA for that. Okay, tip number 3. Networking. I work with many candidates who say, well, I don't know anyone in INSEAD. Well, that's easy. Open LinkedIn, open Facebook, find someone from INSEAD. Look at INSEAD's website. They have lots of ambassadors and they have lots of club members that want to speak to people with the same kind of background. Were you in the military? Great. They all have vet clubs. Were you in the are you interested in kite surfing? Most of them will have some kind of club that to do with your interest. Are you interested in private equity, venture capital, technology, marketing, luxury brands, fashion? Find someone with that kind of background, even if you don't know them, and approach them. Cold call them. Send them an email. Another thing is, yes, visit MBA fairs. Some of the MBA fairs are going virtual now, so you can try and reach them that way. Obviously, visit campuses if you can. If not, just visit their websites. Lots of information. So it's very important, the school research and the networking. Tip number 4 out of 7. There's always essays. So I mentioned NCR, they have 7 essays. Harvard has 1. How do you approach your essays? Very difficult question. Well, I know it sounds very strange, but first thing is don't write anything. First of all, think. Okay, think what you want to do. A second very obvious tip is make sure you're answering the question. You won't believe how many times I've seen an essay that just didn't answer the question. If you're going out of that area, if you're kind of starting with your grandfather's story that gave you a golden watch or whatever nice story you have about your grandfather, just make sure you're getting back very quickly to answering the question. And don't forget, it's all about your aspirations, what you want to do post MBA. So you have to connect the dots all the time to your past and to your future and to why you want the MBA. One last thing I would say here is, or 2 last things, is be modest. Okay, I have lots of great candidates. What they sometimes don't understand is there are other great candidates, sometimes even stronger than them. Okay, you have a 750 GMAT, he has a 760. You're 3 years at PwC, she is 4 years at Deloitte. You've started a startup, he just sold his startup to Microsoft for $200 million. I'm not saying you're not successful, but be modest about it. Very, very important. Schools hate people who are non-modest that's my nice way of saying arrogant. And one last thing. I just started working now with a candidate that wants to work on London Business School. He doesn't have a lot of time. We have 13 days for his application. He said, Shimri, can I have some past essays? I said, You can have 1,000,000 past essays. My advice is throw them to the rubbish. Don't even look what other people wrote. It's a waste of your time. Because if you look what other people wrote, those squares will get into your mind. You'll think that's the format of an essay. This is how an essay should look. And that just means you're going to write a very similar essay to another 1,000,000 essays that London Business School or any other program saw. Be very careful when you're recycling, copying, or even looking at other essays. Okay, I always suggest be original. Okay, 5 out of 7. We're doing this quickly. I hope it's okay. I hope you're still awake. How do I choose my recommenders? Well, this is a tough question. How to choose recommenders. First of all, MBA programs will always prefer professional recommendations versus academic ones. Okay, so try and choose professional recommenders. You can try and help them. Okay, and you can tell them, listen, I need your recommendation. Don't forget I was promoted first out of 7 people and I'm the youngest promotion ever at the company. Okay, that's legitimate to say to your recommender. Choose recommenders that know you well. Okay, it's very nice to choose the CEO of the company, but if his recommendation will be someone else hired him and I heard he's very good, that's not a good recommendation. Okay, so it has to be someone that will tell the right story about you and will tell the detailed story about you, because a recommendation can be 2,000 words. Okay, tip number 6. I think there's only 7, so I think we're doing well. Extracurriculum. I think you remember that slide that summarized these things, which said be interesting, be different, do something. Okay, schools, remember when I was interviewing, I wanted someone that would sit by me at lunchtime. And it's great that you're academic, great that you're professional. I want to talk about something else. I want to see that you're an interesting person. So if you have some kind of extracurricular, if you're volunteering somewhere, if you care about your community, if you run marathons, if you bake chocolate chip yummy cookies, I want to hear about that. That's very, very interesting for me and important. And I think it's last but not least. The first thing I do when someone approaches me, or if I interview someone, first of all, I Google them. Okay? And sorry, guys, you know what Google will tell me about you? It will open your LinkedIn. It will open your Facebook pages. And when it opens your LinkedIn and Facebook pages, I will see what it says there. And if on your MBA application you said you're a manager at Coca-Cola, and on your LinkedIn it will say looking for a job for the last year, that's a huge problem for you. Okay? If it says student intern, and you just told me you're a senior product manager, that's a huge problem. So Google yourself, see what it says there, and try and it's written perfect your LinkedIn profile, but let's start with aligning your presence online to what you're actually telling the school. Okay, that's very, very important. How can Aringo help? I think I said we're very good at helping people get into top MBA programs. Okay, we help with everything. Check us out on aringo.com. Woohoo! That's my email. This is our website. By the way, thank you for GMATclub for hosting this session, and check them out. I think in one of the comments you'll see a promotion. If you subscribe to the YouTube channel, so do that as well. And I will log off the presentation. I will stay online and I will talk, and I will try and answer some of your questions. Okay, so I'm closing my presentation. I'm actually going to close my screen sharing so you can see me, and I will see all your comments. Okay, so I'm going to just try and answer them randomly. Unfortunately, there were a lot of questions, or fortunately, okay. So someone asked me about the GMAT score, okay, and I'm not exactly sure how to answer the question. So the question is, when do you take the GMAT? Can you apply without a GMAT score? Can you apply before you get the final score? Well, things are changing right now with the coronavirus, but basically you can take, you can apply to an MBA program when you have all the prerequisites. That includes the GMAT score. If you took the GMAT score in the same morning and you don't have the score for the essay, that's fine usually with the school. Right now, there's a few, some schools are saying you can apply maybe a week or 2 or even a month before you actually get the GMAT score, but basically you need these prerequisites. Okay, I'm running through. So someone else asked me again about the GMAT. So when you do the GMAT, you can actually add the school names, up to 5 names of schools you want the score to be sent to. This is not a big deal. Okay, so if you're sending your score to Harvard, but then you don't end up applying to Harvard, don't worry, Harvard won't knock on your door. So I would choose 5 schools just because you can do this at a later stage, but it costs money. So I would definitely choose 5 schools and try and apply to, insert in when you do the GMAT 5 schools you want the score to be sent to. Don't worry about this too much. Okay, so don't worry about that too much. Someone asked me about a good ranking in affordable college in Canada. Well, listen, guys, there's top schools in Canada. So there's Toronto, great school, and McGill is a great school. Schulich, and there's 5 or 6 schools. Again, check out our website, aringo.com. We have the rankings of all the schools in Canada. They're very good schools. They cost half than the US schools, and you might get to very similar employers. Have in mind that you will live in Canada throughout the degree, and there's a high chance that your employer will be Canadian after the degree. So I just wanted to have that in mind. Someone wrote Rotman's best, so Rotman's Toronto. That definitely is one of the better schools, but again, the other schools are good too. Rotman is the biggest MBA program. I'm just going through everything and through these sessions and through the questions. I hope you're enjoying it so far. So someone's asking about where can you take, I'm trying to expand actually your question. Where can you take the GMAT from home today? Because GMAT announced that you can take the GMAT, I think, from 6 countries right now. This will change, guys, okay? So if you're studying right now to the GMAT and your test center has been closed due to the coronavirus, GMAT know this. Trust me, they want people to take the test, okay? They make money every time you take the test, and they want the universities to keep accepting this test. So they will make whatever changes they need to make. And if all the test centers are closed, they're going to open more and more countries very, very soon. I think the tests are starting on 15th of April. Let them start. Wait another week or 2. You'll see. All the test centers are opened, or you'll be able to take them from home. It's that simple. Right. What else? Going through your questions. Okay, so someone asked me my age when I switched into consulting. Well, I did my MBA when I was 28, I think. So, and I did my summer internship at Yahoo, by the way. So that means when I was 30, I joined a consulting firm. What else? Right. Can I get in with a 650 GMAT score? Woohoo! At last, the questions I like. So, first of all, the answer is it depends. I don't know you. I don't know which programs you're aiming for. So it really depends. I have no idea what to answer you. Now, when we look at the real answer is yes, if you have a very good profile, and we're looking at a school list that I think you can get into. So the answer is yes. It obviously will be super, super difficult to get into MIT or Harvard with a 650, but there's some other schools, good schools. So this year, just you can look at our website, but just at the top of my mind, we have a 650 who got into London Business School. We have a 680 who got into Harvard. 640 into INSEAD was a huge success. So there are successes with low GMAT scores. Obviously, these candidates were very strong. Part of the work that we do is the first thing we do is a chances assessment. By the way, we don't work with candidates that we don't think can get in. Makes sense, right? Our reputation is important. And for example, again, if we don't think you have a chance, so we wouldn't work with you, and I don't think you should work on Harvard if you have 1 year of experience in as a waiter and you have a 650. Okay, so that's just wrong school for you. But yes, there are lots of schools you can get into with a 650. Okay, I love that question. So someone asked about GMAT averages. Okay, and this is actually something I would look at. So if you're looking at UCLA and they have an average of 710 and your GMAT is 650 and your work experience is average, okay, nothing exciting, your chances are quite low, even if your application is amazing. But if your GMAT average is 20 or 30 points or 40 points below the school average and your profile is above average, well, you have a chance. So if we look at Columbia, again, if their average is 730, it's going to be very, very tough with a 650 to get into. But with a 700 or 710, although it's below average, as long as your application is a bit higher than average, yeah, you have a real chance of getting in. Right. So again, same question. How can I get into a business school of 650? Write a best application possible. Okay, so the best application possible, the better application you write. Okay, and I gave here lots of tips of how to write a good application. Again, talk to me offline and we'll discuss your case specifically. Will help the school notice you. Okay, and I think when I used to review a CV, I used to glance at it maybe 1 minute just to get a high level feeling of the candidate. And sometimes, unfortunately, I used to put the piece of paper down after that 1 or 2 minutes. And sometimes I used to read on. Okay, so if I saw something really boring and something that's not very exciting, I'm not sure I would even start reading their letters of recommendation and essays, etc., in a very extensive way. But if the first document, your first essay, your first CV is exciting, yeah, I'm going to dig into everything. And the GMAT score is just one factor out of many. So don't get fixed on the GMAT score. Again, like we specialize in working with people with low GMAT scores. That's a given. Now let's talk about the rest of your application. Okay. So there's some questions always that I get about IELTS versus TOEFL. If you're an international applicant, same for all the schools. I think the only US school I haven't seen accept IELTS is Wharton, and I'm expecting them to change that. So all US schools accept IELTS, all European schools accept the TOEFL and IELTS. So basically these exams are kind of the same. Again, there are differences between the exams. The IELTS has a personal interview, the TOEFL's on the computer, but the exams are kind of the same. Schools look at them the same. That doesn't matter. Let me take that question further and let's look at GMAT versus GRE. That's a huge question. Even that's not a huge question because MBA programs are just indifferent to both. And if you look at some US programs, actually the lower ranked programs, GRE can already factor 30% of the applicants. In the top programs, depends which school, it can be 10 or 15% of the applicants take the GRE versus the GMAT, which means schools just don't care. Okay, just take one of those tests, whatever test fits you best, and we'll use that score. Okay, and you can see GMAT averages, you can see GMAT averages versus GRE averages. Most schools usually tend to publish the GMAT averages. I think they're all on our website, GREs as well. If not, just contact me. I can send you GRE averages. We also have a calculator that turns GMAT into GRE, etc. So easy to just take any of those tests, exactly the same. So someone asked, someone that wasn't listening at the beginning, asked, do I think the coronavirus will impact getting a job post-MBA? I think it will impact. I think there'll be a higher demand for top MBAs in 2 years. Okay, I think the economy will get, I was going to say slash, some businesses will get slash, some industries will be in a huge problem. They will want to recruit the best candidates they can. I think there'll always be demands for top MBA candidates. Okay. So someone asked, does it matter? I'm 35. I have 3 different degrees, including an MBA and 9 years of experience. Yeah, it does matter. So every piece of information about your candidacy, about you, matter. Are you male? Are you female? Are you from India? Are you from China? Are you a computer science engineer or are you a bus driver? So do you have a previous master's degree? Do you have a previous MBA? Yeah, everything matters. Of course, I can't give you an analysis to your degree, to your chances right now. Send me your CV. I can look at that further. This is a very interesting question regarding part-time MBAs versus full-time MBAs. So well done for that program. That question, I really like that, and it really depends. So this presentation and usually my answers here will discuss full-time MBAs. But there's obviously the part-time or executive MBA option. Let's look at them together as part-time degrees. And there's a huge advantage, right? I can work throughout my degree and I will still get a salary and I'll pay for the degree. And basically at the end, I might have the same degree, right? I might have a Georgetown or NYU MBA or executive MBA or part-time MBA. This is a good option. Okay, so Marcus, thanks for asking that. Good option. And it might fit you. It doesn't fit everybody because this option is less good for career switchers. It's less good for international applicants. Less good for people who want to dedicate the 2 years on, thinking and joining many clubs and doing lots of extracurricular activities. Okay, because what will happen in part-time MBAs is you will study the same academics, but you won't have the same amount of time. You're not going to be 9 to 5 in school 7 days a week, so you won't have the same amount of time to join all the clubs and do all the extracurricular activities, and even go to lots of job fairs and find employers and maybe work on finding the job after MBA because you're busy at your job. So it's a good option for accelerators, good option for someone who maybe his job wants to pay for some of the MBA, but less good for someone who wants to actually go and do this for 2 years and then find a post-MBA job. So a great question. Should I apply basically now with my current GMAT? Or should maybe I apply next year? I think I discussed this in the first slides. I think this is really key to understand right now with the coronavirus impact. There's a real opportunity. I can't say this enough time to apply now and get into a top MBA program for September 2020. This opportunity is a once in a lifetime opportunity. I can't emphasize this enough. The reason is a lot of candidates will defer their applications. A lot of candidates were not able to take a GMAT in the last month or two and have just given up and are going to apply next year. What it means about next year is obvious. It's going to be harder to get accepted to a top MBA program. Should you apply now or not? Well, that depends on you, on your profile, on your GMAT, on the school wish list. So send me your CV. I'll give you my opinion on that. But there is an opportunity, especially for candidates that don't have a visa issue. If you're an international candidate and you might have some kind of visa issue, so again, let's review this offline kind of thing. But there's not much you can lose right now of applying right now. Worst case, you'll be a re-app next year. Good case, you might actually get in for September 2020. Someone asked me, is a certain score enough for a certain school? So again, I tried to answer this before, so specifically 680 for HEC Paris, but I'll try and generalize this. There isn't a certain score for a certain school. Having said that, look at the school averages. If you're below 40 or 50 points below the average, that's probably a problem. If you're a bit lower than average, so you mentioned the 680 for HEC, I can't remember the school average, it must be 680 to 690, something in that area. So yeah, you bang on, even if you come from some kind of less or competitive background, as long as you have a great candidacy, no problem. I had a 630 that got into HEC with quite a high scholarship, 40,000, very high, 40,000 euros. Okay, she's a woman, so she got a Forte scholarship, which is just for women. But there's definitely a way to get into good schools with lower GMAT. Someone asked if a high GMAT, like a 780, well done, by the way, great GMAT, compensates for a low GPA. The answer is yes, exclamation mark. Yes, period. Yes, a high GMAT compensates for your GPA. Now, I know, let's think about the other angle. Listen, I worked for 4 years on my engineering degree. I was whatever, top in class, top in university, top in country, but I messed up my GMAT. Why are schools giving such a high percentage of points for this GMAT and not for my GPA? And the answer is because it's one test that they can give everyone. It's a one given test. They want to see how you do. And it's very hard for the schools to estimate how well or how not good you did in university. So definitely a high GMAT score can overcome a high GPA. By the way, a very high GPA can also overcome a mediocre GMAT score. But again, it's the big picture of things. So as long as you explain to the school why your GPA is very low, for example, in the first year I was volunteering, or I seriously just wasn't paying attention, but now I'm doing it much seriously, and more seriously, yeah, that's good as well. Does a high GMAT help to get a high GMAT help to get a high scholarship? The answer is yes. Okay, so if I'm a school, I've already accepted you. Okay, so again, you've passed the interview, you've passed everything, you've been accepted. But now I need to decide who to give a merit award, a merit scholarship to. You can't influence your background, you can't influence your gender, you can't influence your industry. The only thing you can influence, you can show the school that you're exceptional, is a high GMAT. And I've had years before where if I knew who the candidate was and what his GMAT was, and if he were accepted to a school, I knew he would get a merit scholarship. A school like that was Chicago, Kellogg. Okay, so if you had a 740, 750, again, high GMAT, I knew you would get a certain amount of money minimum. Okay, there were also higher scholarships. So definitely GMAT is like the one factor right now that you can change and help to get a scholarship. Someone asked me about a good GMAT score for Master in Finance. Again, it just depends on which school. School usually tend to just look at class profile. If you look at London Business School class profile, I just can't remember off heart the GMAT average. I think for Master in Finance is around 650. That means if you have over 630, you should be okay. But again, it depends on your specific profile. Send it me, I'll review it. What's my view on STEM MBAs? Lots of advantages with STEM. So again, STEM changes your visa. You can stay for another 2 years. I don't really have an angle on that right now. I'm not sure what the big deal is because I do think most international candidates will find an employer post a top MBA in the US, and this will give them a sponsored visa from the employer anyway. I'm not too worried about visas post MBA, so I think all good. So our friend from GMATclub asked a very tough question, and they asked, in a few years post-corona impact, which sectors are likely to shine and which will doom? So guys, like, this is a very tough question that I think smarter people than me on April 9th don't really know. Okay. So again, I think we're all our pensions and everything, we're in the stock market, and all of us are part of one big economy, and this coronavirus is a huge impact on the economy. Will this mean that this is the doom for airlines because people travel less? Is this the end of hospitality? Is this the end of fairs because everybody's going to go virtual? I don't think it's the end of anything. I do think people will change. I think industries will change. Okay, and forget coronavirus. Let's look at the impact of autonomic vehicles. Okay, so let's say in 4 years, cars will be 5 years, 7 years, cars will be driving themselves. Okay, what will driver instructors do? What will garages do? What will hospitals do? No accidents. Okay, what will, I don't know. So what will they do? They will shift. Okay, and where will they shift to? I don't know. There'll be new industries. Okay, one industry might be car interior designers. Okay, have you ever sat in a lounge in a car? The car drives itself. Why not? Okay, so they might be they not might be. People will shift between industries, and I'm not sure the coronavirus will have. That will be one impact, but there'll be other impacts as well. Okay, as technology moves in, there'll be other impacts as well. Definitely, we can all understand already that anything to do with online, okay, any e-education, okay, e-health, is gonna boom, okay, and I don't know if it's too late to buy a Zoom stock, but any telemedia or e-health stock. But obviously, there's going to be global changes, and they will require MBAs. I'm just continuing, okay? I can go all night here, so I'm just continuing answering your questions. Okay, so people that come from I love this question, so well done. I have a question about people who come from overrepresented backgrounds. Okay, now, again, it's nice to say, oh, schools have a holistic view about you, etc. It's just not true, okay? Because MIT received 2,000 applicants from Indian male engineers. So it's hard to say that MIT judge Indian male engineers like they judge women from Fiji, okay? So you're right, there are backgrounds which are overrepresented and tougher to get into. And the way to overcome it is just be unique in your application, be original. Like we said, forget what other people did. Let's look at your story. Let's think about your strengths. Like when we work with a candidate, the first thing we do is we look at candidates. We look at What are their volunteers? What interests them? Where do they volunteer? What do their parents do? Where did they grow up? Um, why? Because it might be relevant. What are their hobbies? Are they married? Do they have kids? First of all, we start from there. Then we move into the professional experience, the educational experience, and we try and find the best story to tell the schools. And if the story is interesting, we have many Indian candidates that get into top schools. We have many overrepresented candidates. Okay, I'm sorry. Let's talk about white male finance guys from Wall Street. Okay, there's lots of those. Okay, so there's a few overrepresented background people, and they do get in. And the way to get in is to be special. Someone asked me, can they get into top MBA programs, specifically in Canada, but let's talk about the world without a GMAT. So again, going to Aringo.com blog, and we actually put there a list of all the programs you can get into without a GMAT. In regular days, I would say there aren't many programs that you can get into without a GMAT. There aren't any top 10 or top 20 MBA programs you can get into without the GMAT. Again, these Corona days, something's in the air about, can you apply before having a GMAT? Can you apply and maybe you get waived? But if we're talking seriously in 2, 3, 4 weeks from now, when GMAT can be taken from home, GRE can be taken from home, there aren't any top programs, but there are a few programs. I don't want to mention them by name. Just go into our website. You will see there are a few good programs in Spain, in England, in the US that you can get into either with no GMAT at all or with some kind of internal exam. So again, check out our website. We have all that. I'm just continuing. Okay, I'm not wrapping up. I'm continuing. So can GMAT overcome a GPA? Yes, we discussed that. Yes. So someone asked me again, what GMAT score should they hit with 14 years of experience? This is a complete other topic, which is there something called too much experience? Can you even get into a top MBA program with more than 10, 11, 12 years of experience? Again, send me your CV. This is a whole other topic. I would actually recommend to look at specific programs for senior candidates. There are some programs like that. There's one at MIT, at Stanford. Foster in Seattle has a great program like that. So I think you specifically, first of all, need to identify the programs you're applying to. Then we can look at the GMAT that these programs need. Some of them don't need a GMAT. So let's, first of all, identify the right programs. Again, is there a minimum required score? So the answer is no, there's no minimum. Look at average GMAT scores of the school. Again, if you're 100 points below, that's a problem. If you're 10 points below, work on your application, not on the GMAT. I think you're asking here also post-MBA. So if I scored 700 and got into Duke, will I be able to go to McKinsey? The answer is yes. Okay, so the main worry is for you right now is get into the top MBA. Don't worry right now about your post-MBA role and is your GMAT high enough for that. Many employees don't look at your GMAT score post-MBA. And also you can compensate for stuff like that during university. So if you're really interested in consulting, why not be head of the consulting club? Why not be part of the consulting club? So why not do different activities that are to do with consulting throughout your MBA? That will help you be very attractive to consulting firms. Exactly. Okay. Someone's asking if you're not working right now, is it a good time to apply or not apply? This is a whole issue, again, a very specific issue, and we need to address it. Okay, schools don't like to see a big gap in your CV, and if you're not working now for 2 months, I'm not sure if you can find a job. Maybe you should apply very quickly, or you should find some kind of something to do. Again, I don't know, go and volunteer or something. Schools don't like to see a big gap, so we have to overcome that. Someone asked me about recommenders. Again, recommenders are advisable if they're professional. Okay, schools less like academic recommendations. I'm not saying that's not doable. At least one professional, that would be a must. Do you then bring a second or third academic recommendation? It's possible, but again, it's per case and really depends. Someone asked about full-time, part-time MBA. So again, I think I went through this. I'll go through this again. Part-time MBAs are great, same academic curriculum, very good network, same school brand. But the whole degree isn't about finding you a job at the end of the MBA. Okay, so if you're confident you can find a job by yourself, if you're confident that you want to stay in the same way, in the same industry, you know, so maybe go for a part-time MBA. If you're not confident about that, so probably you need a full-time MBA. Okay. Someone asked me if he has 23 months of experience, should he go for a master in management or an MBA? So master in management is a degree that started a few years ago, and got strengthened a few years ago. Most of the European programs have opened these degrees. London Business School opened it a couple of years ago. NCAD opened it this year. Duke has a degree. MIT. There's a few other very similar degrees, master in analytical, something like that as well, and one or two other degrees as well. If you have up to 2 years of experience, yeah, you're on the borderline between master in management and MBA, which usually looks for at least 2 years of experience. I would say it really depends on your experience. If it's been like 3 internships, maybe, and if you're 23 years old, probably a master in management is more adequate, and you have a higher chance of getting into the school with that degree. On the other hand, if you've been working at Google for 23 months and you're going to apply in 6 months, so maybe an MBA. So it really depends on you. Probably master in management, but I don't know you guys. So again, so send me kind of your CV, so I'm going to look at it. Someone asked how to reach out to me specifically. I think if you look here in the chat, my email will appear somewhere. It's Shimri, SHIMRI in one word, Shimri W at Aringo, which is ARINGO.com. That's my email. You can reach out to me or just look at our website and just fill out the form and we'll get back to you. Okay. Can a high GPA compensate for high GMAT? I think we kind of said the opposite. Yes. High GPA, yes. I mean, if it's huge GPA and great achievement, fantastic. Thanks for flagging that. Okay. Someone asked me about some universities. HEC Montreal versus St. Mary University. Again, look at the rankings. These are not top 10 MBA programs. Both are good and might be fine for your career. So again, look at them. Look at school fit. Look where you would like to study, etc. How can Aringo help increase verbal for non-native speakers? Well, I'm not sure they actually understand what we do. We don't help GMAT candidates. We help candidates get into top MBA programs. So we can definitely help international candidates, but we don't help with the GMAT. I think that's it for now. I'm really happy for all these questions. I'm sorry we kind of took a long time. Again, feel free to reach out to us at aringo.com. I've enjoyed this a lot. I hope you did as well. And happy to share our insights in future sessions. Thanks again, guys. Good luck and stay healthy, stay at home. And I hope to talk to some of you soon. Bye for now. Bye.